We are making a Greek chicken orzo kind of bowl thing tonight, but I want to get the marinade made up for our chicken before we start anything else. Starting with some oil. This is avocado oil. We need around a 1/4 cup. I also am adding about a 1/4 cup of apple cider vinegar. So right around a 1/4 cup, maybe a little more on this one. You guys know how much we love using Dijon mustard in marinades. About 2 tablespoons there. Add some honey, just about a tablespoon. Some oregano. I want to add a decent amount of oregano, probably around 2 teaspoons. I mean, oregano in those Greek Mediterranean flavors, you have to have an inch of salt. Since we're using this as a marinade, I'm gonna go a little heavier handed on the salt, in between a 1/2 teaspoon and a teaspoon. Okay, so for this recipe, I am actually going to be cubing my chicken. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that because I feel like the smaller pieces will kind of take the marinade better. So why not, right? Why not just go ahead and get that done, and we're gonna drop it right into our marinade. I do cut off the fatty pieces because I do not like it. So I'm going with around, I don't know, in between a 1/2 inch to an inch size pieces. They don't have to be really small, they don't have to be really large. I would say just bite size, whatever your family considers bite-sized pieces, go ahead and cut them like that. Okay, let's just mix in the chicken, making sure it's nicely coated. I'm just gonna set this to the side. I actually need to put everything away that's in the dishwasher and reload it before I can move on with anything else. Wash up that knife that I was just using. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that while this marinates. Then we'll come back and go ahead, chop up all of our vegetables and get everything ready to go. I'm so excited about dinner tonight, you guys. So excited. I have a zucchini here, or zucchini squash. Let's wash it. Now I'm gonna dice this. I'm actually gonna dice it pretty fine though. I don't want any really large pieces. So I'm just gonna cut into maybe 1/2 inch strips and then dice. And for the sake of the length of this video and sheer boredom, I'll see this up. Now, I probably don't need this whole thing. We're just gonna go ahead and use it. If I put it over in the pot and feel like I don't need all of it, I have another recipe actually this week that calls for zucchini, so I can save some of it. Now you can use regular tomatoes, but I do feel like sun-dried tomatoes will be really good in here. So I'm gonna cut up some sun-dried tomatoes. Okay, I don't really have an amount. I think I'd ideally like to have about a 1/4 cup chopped. Let's just see how, let's see how this looks. I'm gonna try and chop about the same size as I did the zucchini. Feel free to just use regular tomatoes. I saw these in the fridge and I thought, I think that this would be delicious with sun-dried. I've just realized I'm missing what I would consider to be a crucial ingredient for this recipe. We're gonna eat it without it, but Kalamata olives. How do I not have those? I always have Kalamata olives, always, because we eat Mediterranean flavors so often. I'm first gonna start to heat up this chicken. And then really we want to completely cook the chicken through and just set it to the side. You can do both things at one time because the orzo is gonna cook in one pot, the chicken's gonna cook over in a skillet. For the purpose of this video, so that I can show you all of the different components of what is happening in the meal, I'm not gonna do that, I'm gonna cook them separately. While my skillet is heating, I wanted to tell you, I used all of the marinade in my chicken. The reason I did that is because I make up a very, very similar dressing. It's all the same flavors almost on a weekly basis so that we have this available for salads, for dipping, for all different things that we might need it for. So I have this here ready to go. You may want to only use half of what you make up for the marinade and then reserve half of your marinade that doesn't touch the raw chicken so that you can drizzle that over the top of your bowl once these are made. Let's take this chicken over to the stovetop where I have a nice hot pan ready to take this. You can add oil to the pan, but we added oil to our marinade, so I'm actually gonna skip that step. I just have a dry hot pan. Okay, that's a very hot pan. Let's take that down a notch. We need like a medium high, not a burn everything high. I'm probably gonna cook this in 2 separate batches. just to make sure there's no overcrowding and we get good searing on all of that meat. I want to make sure that my chicken is all the way cooked. Great color that we're getting here though, so that part was helpful for having it nice and hot. The chicken is cooked. We're moving over our Dutch oven style pot. You can use a Dutch oven if you want to. And I'm going with a medium high again. Let's put about a tablespoon of oil into that pot and get it nice and hot. Okay, now we're gonna get some good flavor into this pot. Not hot yet, good. Sometimes these handles get really hot. Okay, I'm gonna add in the garlic. That's about 3 to 4 cloves, so a decent amount, and then add in those chopped vegetables. Oh my goodness, it smells so good already. Let me just throw some of the zucchini over the side on the stove, because I didn't just clean this the other day. Okay, medium-high heat currently. We're gonna saute these, adding some amazing flavor. Also, while these cook, I'm gonna add a little bit of salt to them, maybe just like a half teaspoon. Y'all, if you could smell my kitchen right now, wow. These are just gonna cook about 3 to 5 minutes, allow them to soften up, all those flavors to work together. My vegetables are exactly where I want them to be, so I'm adding a full 16 ounces of this Orzo. I'm gonna toast it for just about 30 seconds or so, and then add in 1 cup of bone broth. You can use chicken broth, whichever you prefer. You guys know we always use bone broth. And I get the question a lot, why do you use bone broth instead of chicken broth? And it is because the protein count is actually higher in bone broth. Cooking your things like rice and noodles and stuff like that in bone broth, you're adding protein to it. So we are gonna start by adding 1 cup, about a cup anyway, of the broth. And we're just gonna let that cook for a minute until really all of it has been absorbed. It won't take long, just a few minutes. You can just cook Orzo straight on the stovetop, pour all of your water or your liquid in with the Orzo and just boil it and cook it down just like pasta. Tonight we're treating it a little bit more like risotto, and so we're adding a little bit of liquid, letting all of that be absorbed, adding a little bit more liquid, letting that be absorbed until we get to that al dente. But it takes a little longer. I do think the extra effort can be worth it if you really want it to be over the top. You can see here that the majority of the liquid has been absorbed. So let's add some more broth, about another cup. Overall, it'll probably be about 4 cups. Okay, mix that together. And again, just let that kind of boil or simmer until that is absorbed. For this last bit, I'm actually going to pour the liquid in, and I'm gonna put a lid on it just to finish this up. Let's just stir it to make sure it all gets around there. I did just taste the Orzo. It's still not quite there. And I do feel like it needs a little bit of salt. So we're gonna add a touch of salt. If you want it to go a little bit faster, put that lid on, take it off, stir, put the lid back on. That's gonna help the process kind of move along. Okay, lid on for just a few minutes. At this point, the Orzo is done cooking. It looks great. The liquid is all absorbed. My chicken can be put directly into the Orzo, and you can just make it a mixture. Or if you want to make it look a little prettier in the bowl, you're just going to throw that chicken back in the skillet that you originally cooked it in, just reheat it for a couple of seconds. If you mix it all together, it still tastes amazing. But I think for presentation purposes, this looks really pretty. Let's turn this on over here just to get that chicken reheated through. That's all we're doing. This is done. I'm going to turn this low. Let's give this a try so I can serve it up. Look how good this looks. All those flavors together. Wow. That is so delicious. If you guys haven't made something from my channel in a while, this is the one to make. That is really good. Popping with flavor. I mean, all bursting with flavor. All the flavors. The chicken is so good. The Orzo is so good. Topped with that feta cheese. Delicious. make this one. A Cajun chicken. We're gonna serve it over rice, but it has this really creamy, amazing sauce that goes with the chicken, on top of the chicken cooked in it. So good. I went ahead and prepped my chicken, okay? So all I did was slice those chicken breasts in half. I've got 2 of them. I sliced them in half so that they would be a little thinner. Then I topped them with some Cajun seasoning. Use whatever kind of Cajun seasoning you love, or you can mix up one on your own if you want to as well. You've got things like dry mustard, a little bit of brown sugar. I love adding coriander. You definitely need some salt in there, maybe a little bit of cayenne for heat if you want some heat. All these different really good flavors, okay? I have a Cajun seasoning, so I just sprinkled with Cajun seasoning, and then we sprinkled them with some flour. You can dredge them in flour, but we're gonna take these chicken breasts over to the stovetop and just sear them really well. They'll cook in the sauce, but we wanna get a good sear on them first. Now, I already went ahead and prepped all of my ingredients. You can see them over there next to my stove. I thought we had tons of Rotel, and apparently we did not, but we had a lot of canned tomatoes and then a can of green chilies. So I went ahead and drained the juices, but reserved the juices from both of those, and then put the chilies and the tomatoes in a separate container. Then in addition to that, we needed to make up our liquid. So I have about a half cup of chicken broth, chicken stock, bone broth, whatever it is that you prefer to use here. And I'm gonna add around a half cup of milk. Feel free to use heavy cream or half and half if you really want a nice thick consistency to this sauce. It adds such a beautiful richness. Then I added in about a teaspoon or so, maybe a teaspoon and a half of honey, and about 2 teaspoons of hot sauce. Now, if you don't want this to be spicy at all, don't think Cajun has to mean spicy. It doesn't. Cajun just has a lot of flavor. You can cut down on the spice by cutting out certain spices in your Cajun seasoning. You can also skip the hot sauce. And we're just gonna take this over to the stovetop because pretty much everything is over there at this point. Okay, I'm gonna start by getting some oil here into my pan, and that's gonna help us sear off that chicken. All right, let's go ahead and sear off the chicken. I do think I'm gonna have to do this in batches. And then in preparation for searing off the other side, we're just gonna add a little bit more flour. Since I didn't dredge it, just doing it this way. This thing has really come in handy for so many things. See how good that looks? Once this is done, we'll transfer to a plate and then make up our sauce. Okay, let's take this batch out. I'm also turning my heat down. It's actually gonna go toward a medium-low and just really start to cool down a bit before I put in the next step, which is butter, because I don't want to burn the butter. So we're just gonna let it just calm down for just a minute. Actually, let me just take it off the heat for a minute and just cool a bit. Okay, so I have about 2 tablespoons of butter. We'll add that in, get that melting. I don't know about you guys, but we love Cajun flavors. And I know I've said it here before, I'll say it again. Cajun doesn't necessarily have to mean spicy. So don't be afraid to use those Cajun flavors. Okay, let's put in some minced garlic. It's about 1.5 cloves or so. You could go more if you like a lot of garlic. I have 2 tablespoons of flour. We're going to add that in and just start to cook that off. Doesn't take long, just a couple minutes. Really make sure that pan is not too hot when you add in that garlic, because burnt garlic is really bitter and just not very good. Now we're gonna take those reserved juices from the tomatoes and the green chilies, and we're gonna use it to deglaze the pan and just mix in the flour mixture. You could pull out a whisk if you feel like you need it. I'm kind of scraping the bottom of the pan as I do this. This whisk is a little more flimsy on the bottom, which doesn't allow for really good scraping. slowly start to add in that liquid mixture that we made with the honey and the chicken stock, chicken broth, whatever it is that you choose to use, the milk or the heavy cream, and just start to make up our sauce. Get all of this incorporated, and I just prefer to do this a little at a time. I'm actually gonna switch to a whisk. I also find that I regularly get this kind of stuff on my shirt if I'm trying to do it with a spatula. Also, if you are ever looking for a utensil that I use in any of my videos, you can check the description box, which is just below the video. It'll have a very, very short description, and then it'll say like, see more or click here or something like that for more information. And in that description box, you will find that I always list everything that I use. So for instance, I'm using this whisk that it has a silicone end. I will add that into the video. The utensils, all of the measuring cups, everything like that. There's always links to all of those products. Okay, now we have a nice sauce working here. I'm gonna turn the heat back up to a medium and really let this start to cook. It'll start to thicken up, which is great. Now, if you're using a heavy cream, you're gonna have a bit of a richer sauce than I will. So it should actually look a little bit more rich. You'll see it's gonna be a little bit whiter in color, and you can just kind of see that thickness almost in a heavy cream. We're just gonna let this start to work. Don't leave it alone for too long. Don't walk away for 10 minutes or so, because you'll find that you're really gonna have to mix it really well if you come back, because everything will start to settle. Now, I personally find that this recipe needs a little more green. Cilantro would be so good in this. We don't have any of that right now. I'm gonna add some thyme leaves. They just add a pretty color. I also really love thyme. And although thyme is not a flavor that you would it might not be your first choice in a recipe like this, I feel like it's really good. Now, you could also add in those herbs when you are cooking your garlic and your butter, if you want to do it that way. I really like it when it keeps that green color. Sometimes sauteing them can turn them a really dark green, almost a brown. So I typically like to wait, mostly because for me, although I absolutely love the flavors, a lot of times for me, it's more about the look of it. It's starting to thicken up a little bit, and I want to add the rest of my ingredients, but I want to make sure it doesn't break. So we're going to add in those, I'm dropping stuff. We're going to add in those canned tomatoes with the, what were they? Chilies, the green chilies. And I added a little bit more Creole seasoning to the, or Cajun seasoning to the top of mine, just because I really wanted more. Okay, now we're just going to let this thicken up for just a couple of minutes, and then we're gonna add in some cheese and add our chicken back in. We are going to add some cheddar cheese. Now, if you wanna add some real kick to this, I would suggest something like a pepper jack. You could also do a Monterey Jack or something like that. Just wanna make sure we don't have this one too spicy for the kiddos. So I probably added a little over, maybe like a 1/3 cup. I think I probably still will add a little bit more, but I do like to add my cheese a little at a time, because if you overdo it, it can break up and then it's just not very good anymore. So let's add a little more now that that is incorporated. Mix all this together. Then I'm gonna put that chicken back in and just let it cook for a few more minutes on a medium low. The chicken, you guys saw, I mean, the chicken was already almost completely cooked anyway, but just letting it kind of incorporate these flavors in there and finish off any of the cooking that is left. All right, this is ready. Let's give it a shot, give it a try. Chicken, Cajun, seasoning, spices. Let's see how spicy it is. It's definitely not very spicy. It would be more rich with that heavy cream versus the milk. Even half and half would make it a little bit more rich. I think this would be delicious. Now, if you like heat, this would be delicious with pepper jack cheese because you're gonna get a little bit more heat with that. Obviously, you can add in more hot sauce if that's something you wanna do as well, but this is good. It's really good. The chicken is not overdone at all. It's perfectly cooked, actually. So I think searing it off first and then finishing it when in the sauce is great. Our verse today comes from Psalm 94, 18 through 19. When I thought, my foot slips. Your steadfast love, O Lord, helped me up. When the cares of my heart are many, your consolations cheer my soul. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you need more inspiration in the kitchen, check out the video that I have listed above. You're gonna get even more there. There are some delicious recipes in this video. Hope you're having a great week.